Hi, Successfuls. Kelly here. Have you ever had one of those days when you just sit down to work on your business and suddenly it's hours later and you've been so productive? What if you could do that on command? Well, that's what this episode is all about because we're talking about Deep Work by Cal Newport. This is the Success Through Community podcast. So tell me, what have you been reading? What are we going to talk about today?
Okay, so that is you're going to be so mad at me. That is a very tricky question because you ask what I've been reading, and the answer is not what we're talking about.
Okay.
So we are going to talk today about the book Deep Work by Cal Newport. I told you today is words are hard day. It's a words are hard day.
That's okay.
So we're going to be talking about Deep Work by Cal Newport, which is a book that we've talked about in previous episodes because a lot of the books and writers and authors that we've covered mention this book. It comes up regularly, which is one
regularly.
Of the reasons.
Yes, it does.
Is that a word?
Nope, yeah. Sure not.
Nope.
But that's okay. I love it anyway.
Yeah. Oh, it's so funny. This morning I said something to my husband and he went, "What?" And I told him that the dog was downstairs to pee. And as I was walking downstairs, and he's like, "Where's the dog?" I'm like, "On the couch. What are you talking about?" Yeah, my words are not good today. And then he was like, "Yeah, that was me yesterday." And I'm going, today's recording day. Yay.
So it's okay. You've got a good editor, so you'll be fine.
God bless you. All right. So Deep Work by Cal Newport has come up regularly.
Regularly is the word you're looking for.
A lot is the word I need, though.
Yes.
And because of that, I had such good intentions on reading this book. Yeah. But you know what happened is this is a boring book. And
you know what?
And it's
some
so
of the
funny.
Best books are like, and I say that without any sarcasm, like some of the most meaty and most impactful books are kind of dry and boring.
This is 100% one of them. And the thing is so often over the past weeks, I've been feeling overwhelmed with a lot of things. And I keep reminding myself that I need to sit down and read a book that requires focus. And then, everyone's like, "Well, what are you talking about? What's the book about?" I'm like, "Focus." And
how to have focused success in a distracted world.
Yeah, exactly. So
irony.
that is exactly what it is. So this book is 100% a love story to a distraction-free world and focus. Like it is that. So for me, you know what? This book just wasn't meant for me in this moment. Yeah. I am way too distracted to be able to focus on it. But you know what it did do? And this is why I'm going to recommend this book regardless to everybody, because even if it's not for me right now, I have this book in 3 formats. I have it in audio, I have it in on my Kindle, and I have the hard copy. So I'm reading this book, and one day it will be meant for me, and one day I will sit and read it front to back, and it will show me just exactly how good Deep Work is. But that being said, trying to read this book sent me down a rabbit hole of research on Deep Work. So I feel that I see.
You were trying to study and cheat so that you could not read the book and still talk about the book.
Well, you know what? It's not that so that I could talk about it. It's that it is interesting. It is a fascinating subject.
Yeah.
And I 100% agree with everything he says that I've learned in my rabbit hole without reading his book.
No, but I mean, I get that because even when I read a book that I'm really into, I'll still sometimes go to, Google and see if somebody has summarized the book because it just like helps me focus in on certain topics that I've already read, but maybe didn't fully grasp. So I tease when I say you're trying to cheat because I get it. Like sometimes we need somebody else's perspective on something too, and especially if the people you're reading as you're researching are a little more engaging when they're talking about it.
He's not very engaging in his writing. He is a hoot on his YouTube channel. I mean, seems like a really nice guy and very intelligent and knows what he's talking about. But this book, just, I couldn't do it. I would read and I would read, and I think it's because he does a lot of referencing in the book on who has done deep work and why they did it and how it worked out for them. And quite frankly, I don't care.
Well, how old is this book?
2016, so not that old.
Oh, so his references aren't like old references.
They're not dated by any means. So,
okay.
you know, a couple of them are great. One we talk about often, Miss J.K. Rowling. So she is going to be my first example.
Okay.
She really, and this is all before, obviously, the concept of deep work, as per Cal Newport, was a thing. She was trying to write Deathly Hallows, apparently, and this is according to Cal. She was trying to write Deathly Hallows, but, you know, as an author and a mother and, you know, a businesswoman, she was getting distracted all the time. Like, there were the kids, the dogs, you know, people working around her. I'm probably going to say the maid, you know, all of these things.
Right.
And so what she ended up doing was just renting a hotel room and then going there by herself, locking herself in, and started writing. She only anticipated doing that apparently for an hour or two, just for a bit of time to get something down. She ended up there for like days and days on end. Because
and that's a pretty common author thing to do. I mean, that's like, there's writers' retreats and all kinds of stuff like that. So I see that.
Yeah. So basically, that is what deep work is. It's that distraction-free, hyper focus on what you are doing. And in the book, Cal talks about how it is so important and it has so much value when you can do deep work, but it is so rare. And
well, yeah,
it's
because how do you not
rarity.
have distractions? Like, I mean, I
How many
understand,
of
like,
us,
put your phone
yeah,
on airplane mode and, you know, do whatever, but not
who
all of
has
us
the
can just go to
means?
a hotel and turn
Exactly.
off the world for a while.
Oh man, if I could do that, my life would just be so much simpler. But yeah, not everybody has the means. And so from what I understand, this book does go further into how the average Jolene can do deep work and can do that. And
I see what you did there. That was cute.
thanks. Yeah, I had my moment. Which I think is great. But I had noticed, so the more down the rabbit hole I went, the more I noticed, holy cow, I am like getting sucked into deep work on deep work. Right? So
Yeah.
right, I was ignoring the world and ignoring everybody. And I am fortunate enough that my kids are older. They're not, mommy, I need a glass of water, mommy, I need to go pee. They're my kids are older and they're like, mom, I need the car. It's so much easier for me to just be able to shut out the world. I tell my darling husband, I'm just going to focus on this, just ignore me for the next couple hours. And he says, yeah, no problem. And he leaves. Like, he goes and takes the dog for a walk. Or, you know, my mom, who lives with us now too, I let her know I'm going to be recording, don't come downstairs, or I'm going to be focused on something, let me alone in my office. And she'll just watch her murder, you know, A&E goes on and I don't see her for days. So it's one of those things where I have the means to be able to do this, but not everybody does. So when you get further down the rabbit hole and further into the book, there are tips and practices on how to do this. But what I want, which we'll go over, but one of the things I wanted to talk about deep work was why it works so well. So this is the rabbit hole that I went down, which I think is so nifty. So it's valuable because science.
Well, there you go. Done. Moving on.
Done. Problem solved. Everybody can do everything great if they just do deep work. So the reason is because, okay, I forgive me for all my science lovers out there and those who are, what's the word I'm looking for? Smart. Know what I'm talking about.
That was a hard word. That was a really hard word.
That was a hard word. That know the actual verbiage that I'm trying to say. And if you know any of the science behind this with real science words, please, please, please reach out to us. Let us know. I'll put them on the blog, leave a comment, whatever. We will make it right. But for the sake of right now, we're going with my words. Okay. Basically, when you do deep work and you get that hyper focus and you have nothing to distract you, your brain starts to develop this white goo. Cannot remember the name of it. And this sciencey goo basically supercharges your neurons and your brains to just go, 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 go. Like it's like a drug that your brain develops to help you stay focused. So you can't tell me that you've never been in a moment where you're sitting there working on something and then you notice, holy cow, it's 3 hours later. I've gotten so much done. I've been so productive. And it was just by chance because you were deep into it. And that is your brain making this white goo that, well, I don't know if it's white. It was in one of the videos I looked at. Those little cartoon drawing videos where they talk about it.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a rabbit hole, I'm telling you. But your brain reacts. Like there is a biological reaction to when you get undistracted and hyper-focused and are able to complete work. And the point of the book is when you do that, then you're able to create greatness on whatever you're working on. Because science, right?
Yeah. Well, okay, so I track with all that and it all sounds exciting. And yes, I have absolutely had those accidental deep work times.
Yeah.
But I guess my next question, and I'm not necessarily posing it to you, but if you read something or saw something in your rabbit hole, then please, by all means. I remember when we were talking about the 1% rule, Tommy was talking about how he like sets up his environment to put himself into deep work. But like, we're a very ADD society.
Yes.
So like, even if I turn off all the notifications and I, shut the door and tell people, leave me alone and whatever, and all those things happen and my environment is set up, like sometimes your brain is just not in the mood.
Right.
How did they talk about other things? I mean, is it all about like the environmental triggers, or is there like something else, like an exercise or something you can do? Because that's where I get into trouble in this.
Well, and that's just it. So he talks about with deep work, you're not just going to be able to do it. And it's just not something that's going to come to you right now. So they go down this list of things that you can do to help you get into it, where you want to grow into longer levels and longer times of deep work. So if you can do it for 10 minutes today, great. Make it 10 minutes every day at the exact same time. That way, a week later, it'll be 11 minutes. And then a week later, it'll be 12. And then
so
you can just
so what
keep
you're
going,
saying is,
right?
Build a habit.
1%, build a habit. So in the book, one of the things, after it talks about setting the schedule, it talks about creating a deep work only environment. It talks about that this environment itself is going to lend itself to being undistracting and helping you focus. It's your deep work space, so to speak, right? So you choose a place that you only are working here for deep work, such as, a library or your office, for example. So you try not to be flighty and do other things, or, you set the environment up, and that's where those triggers come in. So specific songs, specific ambient noises, specific lighting, making sure that you have enough coffee, food, water, everything you need so that you don't start having to get up and go. You can just reach and get it. You kind of work it all into your routine. And from what I remember when we were talking about atomic habits, using that powerful environmental cue to help you get into the habit of is one way you can set yourself up to doing deep work. So I think, if I recall in the book, they talked about a candle, where I can't remember if it was a suggestion or if somebody did it, or, if it was a reference or whatever it was, but I remember a candle being talked about, that this every time deep work was going to be done, this candle was lit. And that was the trigger for this person.
Yeah, I feel like Tommy mentioned that when he was referencing deep work in one
A
particular.
candle?
That's yeah. Like I feel
That's
like
so interesting.
when he was talking about deep work, I feel like he did mention that something about a candle.
Yeah. So, and it comes down to exactly what you said and what James talks about. And from what I remember being talked about in deep work is you need to give yourself those triggers. You need to have, and we talk about triggers all the time in the real world as something negative, right? You know, you see all those posts on social media, trigger warning, and then it's going to be something about, you know, domestic abuse, let's say. And so they do that trigger warning to avoid anybody who's going to fall down into a rabbit hole of PTSD or whatever it is. But triggers don't have to be bad. They can be something that really helps you move forward with something. And I love the candle suggestion. I've turned into this weird incense person. And I'm so glad that my husband has no sense of smell because I just burn crap all the time now.
Oh, that takes me back to like the 90s when I had like
I know.
I love it. That's amazing.
I opened up an old box of candles and it was like there was like all these incense sticks in there. And I was like, do they even survive?
But back then we thought we were so cool with like our patchouli incense and
so
like
we had those beautiful moon and sun.
yes, oh my gosh, I had that. Yeah. Oh, that's too much.
Oh yeah, we aged ourselves. But
anyway,
anyways,
right, whatever.
So when you start, and they talk about when you get into deep work is the doing it bit by bit, right? You have to start by starting with a schedule. Then that's how you start it, and then you have to create that environment, and you have to literally constantly create the habit of that's the environment. And he talks about 3 types of deep work. There was ad hoc, which I remember because I had to Google that word. I'm like, what is ad hoc? But it's just doing it when you
one
can.
Off. Yeah.
Yeah. Doing it when you can. So when you are in that zone and you know right now you have the time, right now you have the ability, the kids are in daycare, the husband's walking the dog, you know, mom is watching Murder. This is my moment. So go light that candle and get going.
Yeah.
The other is scheduling it, obviously. So every Wednesday at 2 p.m. I'm writing, I'm doing whatever it is I'm going to do that needs to be done. And the thing about deep work too is there was you have been pushing this and you called me out on it. And I'm trying to remember, but you know, only giving work and working on what needs to be done. What was the quote you put the other day?
I know what you're talking about. It's like
it's too early.
It's geez, this was like just in High Performance Habits. It was the PQO.
Yeah.
I remember, Brendan. Just give me a minute. Something about like, this is gonna drive me nuts. The prolific quality output. Oh,
yes.
Boom. Yes.
Boom.
Meaning like not distracting yourself and procrastinating with things that don't really matter and focusing your attention on doing the thing that is what you actually want to put out there. Yeah.
Work in short, take your deep work and focus on what matters.
Right. The one thing, right? We already talked about that book, right?
Do as I say. Yep. Do as I say, not as I do. So when you are in deep work, don't try to perfect a spreadsheet that is going to, you know, help you with your budget just because you're avoiding everything else. That does nothing. That's not going to move my business forward. But my spreadsheet is perfect.
It doesn't say that. It doesn't say though that stuff like that shouldn't ever be done. It's a difference of like, because I mean, if you don't need to perfect a spreadsheet, but you do need to have those kinds of reports for yourself to see that information, right? So it's not about.
I already had that.
Yeah, well, you did already have that, but I'm clarifying for the audience here, though, is like, it's not about doing those types of non-deep work activities ever. Like those things still have to get done. They're just not what's supposed to be the focus of your deep work time. Like your deep work time should be creativity and like creating content, not social media content, but like courses if that's what you do, or programs, or you know, writing your book or painting your masterpiece, whatever it is, like that's what deep work should be. The other stuff is
Yes.
like the lighter work. Like I almost think
Yeah.
of it as like REM sleep versus all the other sleeps, because I don't remember what they're called. But you know what I mean?
Nap time.
Yeah. Like deep work is that REM sleep where it's like really quality and impactful. And it's not that the other sleep isn't important, but it's just not the point.
It's a little bit more shallow. So that's where
Yes.
distractions are not going to be as hard. And one example is that spreadsheet. Like I should not have focused so much time on it and used that. That's just me. That was a lesson learned, because once I was done, I was like, I saw myself in there, that those neurons were firing and everything. I was in my my own version of Limitless. It was insane. But that is not where I should have been putting my deep work. It should have been on my book. It should have been on a course for next month. Like there are, and it's a lesson learned for me. Your shallow
wonder
worker,
though, track with me for a minute on this, because when you were talking before about basically habit stacking, right? When you were talking about the triggers and things like that, I almost wonder if, I mean, you'd have to shorten the amount of time you spent on like perfecting the spreadsheet, things like that. But I almost wonder if that could be your trigger, because, sometimes there are activities that we are naturally gravitating towards, like organizing something or making it pretty or whatever it might be, that kind of puts your brain into that mode. And then it's about recognizing, oh, I'm in that mode. I need to redirect it.
and I think you're right. I mean, for me, before reading deep work, I think you're 100% right. My trigger was getting distracted by something, finding that hyper focus on something, planning, organizing, making it pretty, whatever it is. And then I would pull myself out and do something. Right. So as you know, I'm personally just trying to blog every day for 30 days. This is just a me thing. And as I was working on this spreadsheet and I'm getting her done, and I was in the zone for like 2 hours. This thing is magic. And
I want a copy of it, whatever it is, right?
Even my husband was proud of me.
Oh,
but
wow.
And he's a nerd, right? So this spreadsheet, yeah, I'll get you the link. It's kind of great. But then halfway through, like when I was like, I think it's perfect, I went, wait a minute, I haven't blogged today. Oh my God. And then I just stopped everything. And then, but I was already firing. I was already going. I was already in the zone to do something productive. So I think you're right that getting into something like that could have been my trigger at this point. I'm going to try something else so that it can be more intentional deep work, not, reactive, I guess.
Yeah.
The book does talk about, deep work versus, I believe he called it reflective work, not shallow work, which I guess can give a negative
Sure.
Negative. Yeah.
Connotation.
And that
That's
is
the word you're looking for.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Are we playing Password? I feel like we're playing Password. And I am not that old, but I watched reruns of that game show with my grandmother. I'm just saying. Do you know that show?
I love that game show. I do, where they have to say something and you make
because just now I had this moment where I felt like I was saying the password is connotation. I just sorry. I digress. Move on.
That's so great. But when he talks about the difference between the deep work and the reflective or shallow work, it comes down to things like checking your email. You don't really need to be hyper focused and deep work. He does okay, and I need to clarify something. In my rabbit hole and in the book, from what I can recall and the few notes I have and the few highlighted areas I do have, the term hyper focused never comes up. That is a Jolene word. That is me saying that for my clarification. I don't know why it doesn't come up, because to me that seems to be what it is.
Yeah.
But again, that's a negative connotation that people might think hyperfocus can have. Yeah.
Why is that negative? I mean, we're not talking OCD. We're just talking hyperfocus.
Right. I know, but there's, it's a funny and fickle world we live in. So people are very careful with their words, except me.
Well, I don't see it as a negative connotation. I'd be curious if anyone listening does, but I didn't think that in the slightest.
But I noticed that too, because I'm thinking hyper focus all the time, and it's, in the zone, and, you got your limitless channel going on and life is good. Why isn't anyone using that term? Because,
Yeah.
well, what, it could be because I am researching deep work by Cal Newport, a term he coined. Therefore, instead of using hyper focus, they're using deep work instead. But I found for me, hyperfocus was a really, really good way for me to really understand what was happening in the moment when I was doing it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that's how I would think of it too. I mean, because there are levels of focus. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like you can be focused on something, but then like still distractible, right? Whereas
Exactly.
like hyper focus to me is like you've got blinders on. Like I'm actually doing it with my hands as I say
Yeah,
it.
yeah, me too.
You
I
know,
keep doing that gesture like
yeah,
I'm
because
a
that's what
airline guiding the
yes,
plane in here.
yes, because that's exactly what I picture. It's like there are blinders on and I don't see what's going on to the right and the left. And so I can be, we'll change it to deep work, but that's, yeah, I'm with you on
Yeah.
that.
And that's the thing. So like I said at the beginning, that this is a love story too. Focus on a distraction free world and getting your work done, what needs to be done. It's a love story to creating good habits in order to do this, because when you're able to get into this kind of groove and this deep work and making it a habit continuously, you're going to create some pretty amazing things. And that's where the point is coming across on this book, is that the deeper you go, the more you can do it, the greater you're going to create, the greater your return. Your ROI is going to be through the roof when you're able to do these things, because you're going to find clarity on what matters. You're going to be able, because it goes hand in hand with attention and awareness, and you're able to really get things done. So you're going to go down a rabbit hole of creation and positivity, and you're going to come out feeling so good about yourself and so good about your company. That deep work kind of just, it's almost like a guide to better living.
Huh.
In a sense,
Yeah.
because because you know how it is. When I finished that spreadsheet, I was high as a kite, and I was so happy, but I was so mad that I didn't have any information to put into it anymore, because it's an expense spreadsheet and a budget spreadsheet, and I'm not buying anything today. So darn it.
You
You know
couldn't
what I mean?
use your masterpiece right then.
Yes, I couldn't use it, but it's done. And I'm just like, every time I do go use it, I'm like,
Yeah.
and
Well, it's like
you've
it's
done it.
kind of like like deep work is letting you tap into your area of genius, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I like that.
Absolutely. And it gives you more value, more purpose, more meaning when
Sure.
you're able to do this, and when you come out of it and you realize, look what I created. Because you got to think about it. Any great masterpiece, regardless of what it is, whether it's art, tech, writing, anything, you cannot tell me they did it in 5-minute intervals between, getting the kids water, making dinner for dad or your
Yeah, those
husband,
pockets
or
of
you know what I
time
mean?
that we always talk about. Yeah.
Yeah, these everybody would have had to at one point sat down for a minimum amount of time on a certain amount of days and get her done. And basically, we've talked about it before. It's just about getting it done. You need to develop those routines, and you need to be able to develop that habit and build on it, that 1%. Like I said earlier, if it's 10 minutes today, it might be 11 minutes next week. And the thing is when you are trying to get started, another thing that they pointed out in all of my, I guess, research, the book, I'm assuming, talks about it because everybody else talks about it. And the term they used was making friction with the distractions. So,
Oh,
yes,
making
you're
it
going to cut.
hard to be
Yeah,
distracted.
you're
Yeah.
going to cut off social media and stuff, but if you make it difficult for your kids to be banging on your door by making them go to a friend's house to play for an hour,
I was
or
gonna say, what are
you
you
know
supposed to do? Like lock them in their
medicate
room?
them. No, I'm kidding. Okay, I do not condone. No, do not medicate your children. But yeah,
Oh,
like,
that's funny.
schedule a play date.
Give them
That's going to
something to
make it
do.
very
Yeah.
hard for them to come and be on your case. And sometimes at play date, I get it. I've raised my kids. I understand that when you have that 1 hour of silence, you're just going to stop and just, watch soaps. You're going to do something.
Yeah.
But
Well, you
maybe
also
if
can't count on that on a regular basis
on a regular
necessarily, because
basis.
that's,
Yeah.
that's
So that's when the
unrealistic, but it's,
scheduling comes in.
yeah,
That first 30 minutes when they're finally asleep. Try that. But if you don't have kids, it's, scheduling it when you're done walking the dog, because now they're tired and they're just lying down in bed and they're not going to get up and annoy you, or, you know what I mean? It
hmm
talks about finding where and how and turning it into a habit, making it hard for people and other things to distract you. Turn
yeah,
off the social media, send the kids out for a walk, put them to bed, turn the phone down if you still have a landline, all those things. Do whatever you need to do and create those barriers so that you can focus, and
yeah,
then try to make it for longer and longer periods of time. That way, when you sit down, you get that hour and you can do nothing but what you need to do for that hour. And you lit your candle, so you are in the zone. And that's
yeah.
kind of how it works. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love, and I love, I mean, selfishly, I guess, I love that it all keeps coming back to habits. Like, I feel like every single book we talk about, somehow it still comes back to habits. So
Mm-hmm.
I just have to say, like, if anyone is still resisting habits and habit building, like, stop, because
Yeah.
it's clearly the secret sauce. Whatever method you choose to subscribe to and, follow, it still comes down to that every
Mm-hmm.
time.
Absolutely. And I'm a resistor, people. Trust me. I 100% agree with what Kelly has to say. I have to do it myself. And it's not easy by
No,
any means. If it
it
was
gets
easy, everybody would
easier.
be doing it, right? But it
It gets
gets
easier
easier.
though, right?
Exactly.
Because as you slowly build a habit, you get into the habit of building habits. It's just like it's
Exactly.
exponential.
Right.
But yeah, the first one especially is extra hard, and I think doing it with somebody else or having that accountability with somebody, especially as you get started, is so important. And then over time, you don't necessarily need that as much. But I think in this kind of case, like, I would love to do like a deep work habit thing with you. Like,
Oh,
let's
that'd be
just,
amazing.
yeah, like, let's just maybe we'll do that and just
Oh,
report back to each other, and like at the end of a
yeah.
week, what we got done in our deep work time.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that they talk about, is to, make sure that you're making the most out of your deep work, right? When you have your environment, you have your time, don't pick up and go on Facebook. Actually do deep work. Do it. Get it done. But
Well, and I
focus
think,
on what's important and make sure that you have accountability where possible. So
but I think
if you
even
can have
before the
someone,
accountability, you have to
yeah,
have your plan,
your plan, your
right?
goals, the right
Like,
metrics, you need to know
well,
what you're getting
yeah,
into.
all of that, but like, you need to know, and I know one of the gals in our mastermind does this really, really well. She has this kind of like running list of things that need to get done, which
Hmm.
I think is great. And I think we can have kind of like two of those, right? One for like the lighter work, and then one for the deep work, where, because what it comes down to is, if you get into your deep work mode and you start building that habit and you get better and better at it, but you don't actually know what needs to get done, then you
Yeah.
waste part of your deep work time figuring out what to deep work on.
Yeah. And
You know what I
that's
mean? It's
where,
like it's a
yeah,
waste. You need to know, like,
yeah,
what are the things on my deep work list, so that you sit down that day and you're like, all right, next thing I need to do is this. So that's what I'm going to spend the next however long doing. I think that's a
exactly.
key part of it.
I think that's huge. Like, that's definitely focusing on what's important. But if you don't know what's important, you're not going to be able to focus on it. So
Right.
clarity is, it's
Everything.
definitely key. It's
Yeah.
everything. And for a lot of us, clarity comes in spurts.
Yeah.
Sometimes it really does. It comes in spurts and you have that moment of clarity. But if you don't process it properly and make a plan with it, you're not going to be able to move forward with it, and you're going to jump to something else. So that's when the metrics and knowing what your end goal is and what is important and what isn't is going to be important. And it's going to be different for everybody. It's 100% going to be different for every company, for every person. big and small businesses. It does not matter. It's going to be different. So you have to know yourself and know your company very well.
Yeah.
And if getting to learn it is part of the deep work, then that's part of the deep work.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
this is good. I mean, I can definitely understand the struggle to get into a book that is, you know, maybe not speaking to you, but I
Mm-hmm.
definitely appreciate that you took it a step further to find something that would keep your focus and still teach you the same information, because
Yeah.
I can see how like it is fascinating, this concept, but you know, if it wasn't just grabbing you in the way that the book was written, no shade to Cal, but just like for whatever reason it wasn't grabbing you, it doesn't take away the value of what he's saying. And
Exactly.
I think that's, yeah, that's just very interesting.
And I think that really speaks volumes to the day and age. I mean, in high school, if I had to read this book, I would have failed that class 100%, because I didn't have the internet. I didn't have, Google with everybody who has ever read this book giving their opinion and what they took away from it.
Right.
Right. All I had was the ability to talk to others who have read the book back then. So I think that I'm fortunate that I was able to do this. And I found YouTube videos, I found podcasts. There is so much out there on this book. It's astounding. And it's a rabbit hole, like I said, that you can just go down because it's such a wonderful and important topic. I can guarantee you that when I am not being overwhelmed, I will sit down and finish this book front to back, because I started it and then it was just like, I can't do this right now. It's dry, it's boring, it's just not for me in this moment. And I felt like that about Blue Ocean. Like it took me years to finally finish Blue Ocean, and it wasn't for me in that moment.
Right.
The thing about deep work is, and I think one of the things that I got out of this book, other than, wow, I can do this, you think that you can't. And a lot of us feel like we don't have the ability to really focus, that we've lost that ability. And we look at social media and go, yeah, that's why. But then when I get into the zone on something, and now that I have a basic knowledge about deep work, I realize that I totally have the ability to channel my inner limitless, to really focus and get those little white gooey thing neurons firing and able to, buckle down and get her done. But what really came to me, and this is because of my current situation, is overworking and overwhelm is not deep work. And that's where a lot of the misconception comes in. Because if I'm just constantly working 12, 16 hours a day, whether it's on my business or, writing a book, creating content, whatever it is, that isn't deep work. That is overwork. And the fact of the matter is if you are able to do that deep work and build those habits and be able to do it and ritualize it and create that schedule, you won't be overworking as much. And
Yeah.
then,
Well, because you'll
because you're
get
not
so much
overworking.
done in so much less time, realistically.
Exactly. And then you
Yeah.
can relax.
Yeah.
Once you're done all of that, you have the time to decompress, relax, and then you're going to be able to be creative and do your work again without the stress.
Yeah. It's
So
almost
I
like deep
kind
work gives way to deep relaxation.
of, there's the title of the podcast. I love that.
No, but it's true though, right? Think about
It
it.
is
Like
so true.
when we try to relax, and I think, I think this is definitely on some levels a female thing, but it is definitely an entrepreneur thing,
Mm-hmm.
that we struggle with insomnia a lot because our brains won't shut up at night,
Yep.
right? And I
Yep.
think this could be a potential cure for that in a way, because if you actually focus and get stuff done, then your brain isn't still like bouncing around all the stuff. You're setting those boundaries for your brain
Mm-hmm.
as the way that we try to do in work-life balance, and like I only work in this room or these
Yeah,
days or whatever. It kind of is doing the same thing for your brain, right?
exactly. Like, how many times have you been stressed out about a project and you're working
A
on it,
million.
you're so stressed out, and then when it's finally done, you just like crash and you
Yeah.
sleep.
Yeah.
And that is your brain going, oh, thank God, I
Yeah.
can relax now.
I can let that
Right.
go
And
now. Yeah.
Yeah, and that is why one of the other reasons why deep work is so important, and how it definitely benefits your life and your quality of life. So that being said, I am going to recommend this book. And if you are like me and not big on it right now because it is dry and long and factual, then go down the rabbit hole. Google it, find Cal on YouTube, find his website, and just learn about deep work, because in itself, it's a fascinating topic. And you will learn so much and you will benefit from it. Whether you read the book or just go down the rabbit hole, there is benefits to knowing about this and being able to recognize it. Because once I was able to recognize it, when I am in that deep work and that hyper focused moment, I was able to really get things going, because I was just really able to move forward, which is astounding, because recognition is huge, because you get that clarity.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, so I'm going to, this is 100% Jolene approved, even though Jolene didn't read it.